Today we're interviewing Bex Johnson, whose campaign slogan is "A Voice for Our Community." Bex has completed 2 terms on council and is looking to be re-elected as a candidate in the General Ward. Welcome, Bex, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lyn. It's a pleasure to be here.
Look, what motivated you to stand?
Well, about 9 years ago we moved back to Masterton, which is home, because my mum had a stroke. And once we knew that we were here for good, I decided I needed to do something more meaningful and with purpose. I was currently the regional manager of Media Works Wairarapa in Whanganui, and I'd been in radio for over 35 years. But I realised it was time for a change and I wanted to do community work. So I actually resigned from Media Works before the election results came in. A number of people asked me if I was overly confident and thought I would get elected, and that's the reason I did it, but it wasn't. It was because I knew for sure that I needed to go down a different path. I didn't want a fallback option, and I wanted to do community work 100%.
And so what can you bring to the role this time?
I believe, I'll just put my glasses on because then I can read my notes. Common sense, pragmatism and an open mind. I look for solutions, not problems. And as a councillor, I don't have a set agenda. You know, I always gather information, learn, listen, seek feedback, and then make the best decision I can, to the best of my ability, for the people that I represent.
Great. Look, let's talk about rates. Do you know what the median wage is for the people of Masterton?
Well, it depends which report you look at,
Of course.
but it's on average about 53k.
Okay, so do you think the long-term plan rates increase at 6.8% for the next 10 years is affordable for ratepayers on those sorts of wages?
I don't think the 6.8% increase is affordable, and many of you will know that I voted against the 6.8 increase, and I also voted against the adoption of the annual plan. What I do believe is that council needs to reduce its costs, and it also needs to look for additional revenue streams. We can't keep saying yes to everything and pushing the cost onto our ratepayers. Over the past 10 years, council has been asked to deliver more and more without additional funding. Economic development, climate change, a regional growth strategy, mana whenua liaison, representation reviews, plus of course the central government mandates of the 4 well-beings. That's all being forced upon local government with no additional funding. Also, we've brought a number of activities in-house which were previously outsourced. HR, health and safety, project management, property management and community development. And for the first time in 20 years, council has more projects on the go at one time than ever before. And this is all primarily funded by ratepayers. So something's got to give. We have to start saying no to the over and above business as usual and focus on our essential business. I'm nearly finished. The second thing that council needs to do is increase our revenue streams. We're too reliant on ratepayers. If we add 10% to our user pay charges across the business, that equates to around $700,000, which is approximately equivalent to a 2% rate increase. So I believe we need to find ways to lessen the burden on our ratepayers. One is to start saying no and focus on the essentials, and the other is to apply an increase to our user pays charges.
So if you had the opportunity to decrease rates, what would go, do you think?
No, I won't say that now because I'm one of 8 people, but there are definitely some activities that we're doing because we're trying to fill a social gap in our community, which central government and social welfare used to fill, and I just think we're taking on too much.
Is it council's responsibility to take on social gaps in the community?
Labor government mandated the 4 well-beings and says that and we have to apply them. but it's to what extent? You know, how long is a piece of string? I believe we're trying to do too much.
Let's talk about the Civic Centre. You're one of the famous 5 who voted against a new Civic Centre on a new site. So what's your current position on the debate, and what is a reasonable maximum spend for you as a councillor and as a ratepayer?
Well, my stand on this is pretty well known for those who have kept up with the saga, and it has been a saga. I wish for the Civic Centre to be rebuilt on its current site. Not many people know that that land was actually gifted to us by Trustlands Trust for community use, and that's exactly what we should do. We should use it. It's land we own. We don't need to buy land, and the sooner we get on with that, the better. I think that the Civic Centre on the current site should comprise an auditorium, front of service office for council, and also meeting rooms and office space for community groups. I also believe that that can be achieved for less than 30 million. And the other thing, because the two go together, is I also support the library remaining on its current site. And my understanding is that that can be done for less than 5 million, which would house the library and the archives. And also, too, we could start on that immediately. And the other thing is that we put aside $5 million for the library more than 2 terms ago. So let's get cracking.
And the Masterton Theatre Company has got a proposal out there as well. I gather that, I know you're part of the theatre company, but you'll have seen that proposal.
Yes, I have.
What's your view on that, given the cost that they're looking at is about 30 million as well?
I celebrate their aspirations. There's a couple of things though. Currently, the Harlequin Theatre only houses a third of that site, and they've done a design and a plan for this full site from Dixon Street to Queen Street. That land is currently not available. So whilst they've got a big dream, I think they should focus on the site that they do have, which is where Harlequin Theatre is, and stage the project and start with the essentials and see what they can fundraise, and then if it moves further on and becomes the big picture, then so be it. But at the moment, I should think they should stage the project and start with what they actually need.
We haven't seen their funding model clearly yet.
It's not complete yet.
No, but can you see them coming to council looking for ratepayers' money to help with this?
I can see them coming to council for that, but it should be a community-led project. Because interestingly enough, when we did the deliberations last year, Masterton Theatre group were very candid and said that a civic centre or a 700-seat civic centre would not suit their needs. You know, they need a place to put their wardrobe, their props for practices.
A working theatre.
Yeah, absolutely. And also too, they use a theatre pretty much 12 months of the year now that the two groups have merged. So they need their own facility, which I think's long overdue and would be a great addition to the community.
It's just having two that complement each other, hopefully. I would take it that with the review that's now been put to the Civic Centre within council, you know, under that review you'll look at the theatre company's proposal as
part of that review is they will be talking to them. Yeah.
That would be
I
great.
think it'd be very difficult for the community to fund both.
Yeah, I don't think we can afford it ourselves, but...
So there need to be different funding streams.
Yes. Okay, thank you for that. Now let's talk about infrastructure. We've got very large housing developments going on in Masterton, all approved by the town planner. We have climate change causing more severe weather events, and ratepayers living with portaloos, you know, every time their streets flood, some as long as 8 to 10 years now. We fully expect significant water restrictions in the summer, and our infrastructure is going to struggle more in future years. So how do you plan on addressing this issue?
Well, firstly, our infrastructure can withstand the growth because developers pay contributions towards new infrastructure with each subdivision and each developing area. What we need to continue working on, though, is our ageing infrastructure. Some of our pipes are over 60 years old. The other thing that affects that is that Masterton's topography is such that it starts up here and ends down here, and the water comes from the hills. So the residents living in the lower lying areas, such as Colombo Road, Coburn Street, etc., they face the brunt of any flooding. However, though, because the water comes from the hills, you have to fix the pipes at the top before you fix the pipes at the bottom. You know, there's proverbial saying, shit runs downhill, excuse the language, but this is the case. So Masterton District Council has a stormwater and wastewater asset management plan, which they are continually working through, replacing, renewing, maintaining old pipes. In fact, this year alone, the budget is $7 million on stormwater and wastewater. So council is working through that all the time, and eventually they'll get to where they need to be.
Coburn Street.
Well, you have to fix uphill first before you can fix downhill. So if you make bigger pipes down the bottom and the pipes at the top aren't big enough, all the water flows downhill anyway. Council's very aware of it, that's for sure, and they do have a plan to continue repairing, replacing old pipes. The other thing is that we're also affected by the limited number of players in our market who can do the work and contract availability, but it's an ongoing asset management plan.
So can we just talk a little bit about Three Waters?
Sure.
Just because it's like, you know, we're being offered $3.88 million as part of the first tranche of money for that. Some council's looking at taking that. That probably means for us ratepayers that we're going to accept the Three Waters proposal from government, which is looking like it's going to be pushed at us unless there's a change of government next year. I mean, do you see...
Do you want to know my stand on Three Waters?
Yeah, let's
Absolutely.
go from there.
Okay, I'm against Three Waters. There's a number of reasons. One is generations of Mastertonians have paid for those water assets over the years, and they're valued at $100 million. We call them assets, central government calls them liabilities. It's just a spin. But also they're offering in total about $15.5 million for $100 million worth of assets. That to me is blood money. They're saying, we want control, here's some money, which is like saying, yes, we'll take your money, yes, we accept your proposal. The thing is, we will have no choice. It's being forced on us. I still think ethically though, because I'm against Three Waters, I don't want that better off funding. The other thing is too, it's tagged. Central government has set strict criteria for what it can be used. It can't be used for anything already in our long-term plan. Well, that's flipping ridiculous. We've got a long-term plan for a reason, to plan ahead, to prepare our community for the future, and yet we can't use the better off funding for anything that's in the long-term plan. The other thing is it's tagged for things like placemaking, climate change, housing. Well, local government isn't really in housing.
It's your job to do housing.
Yeah, it's central government's job as far as I'm concerned. And it's got criteria attached to it. We lose control of our assets. We become one of 22 councils in our water entity. We're actually doing pretty well with our water infrastructure. And one of the things that is so vital that we have is that extra storage up at Kaituna, which we've put in our long-term plan $7.5 million for, which would avoid the drought situation in the summer, because at the moment we only have 3 days worth of water storage. We get up to 60 days worth of water storage with that. But if we're under a water entity which is controlled by central government and iwi, who's to say that, if we're competing against 20 other different councils, that storage at Kaituna will be a priority? Especially if you've got someone further up north who's boiling their water. And our ratepayers will be paying for work on other councils' water infrastructure. There is some merit for the common good, but in this instance, our water assets should remain with us and we should have control over them. And we shouldn't accept the money.
However, council have put out a proposal with 11 projects on how to spend that money, asking for feedback from residents and ratepayers.
Correct.
I think one of the 11 projects was about infrastructure.
Which was the first one, which was the only project that we all agreed on. Because we do realise it would enable us to speed up some of our pipe work. But it's only a drop in the ocean.
So you can use that money though for infrastructure.
That's what we've put, because that speed up work wasn't in our long-term plan. So it would be additional water infrastructure work.
Because I would have thought infrastructure is about well-being for your community.
Agreed.
Thank you. Look, let's talk about amalgamation. Because a lot of this will come out of that as well. I mean, local government reforms are coming, as you know. So where do you stand on the amalgamation with the 3 Wairarapa councils?
To be honest, I don't have a stance on it. And the reason being is that I am fully expecting that central government will force the 3 Wairarapa councils to amalgamate once the local reform is undertaken. You know, geographically we're a sizable region, but we're a small region population-wise. You know, we voted against it last time, but I don't think we'll get a choice. I'm not sure of that, you know, it's crystal ball gazing, but I would imagine that we'll be forced to amalgamate. If so, you know, you got to go with the flow. But there is a lot of duplication throughout the 3 councils. Plus, there should be more working together and also more sharing of services. I mean, the dog pound thing is just a fiasco. The 3 councils work mainly in silos at present with a focus on their own towns and not what could be best for the whole region. And I think the local government currently is very parochial. And I imagine that this might change as a result of the local government reform.
Okay, look, we need to wrap it up there. But we thank you so much for your time today and we wish you all the best for your election campaign. That was Bex Johnson, who is standing in the General Ward. What did you think? We look forward to your feedback.